I'm delighted to introduce a man Tynd from State Street. State Street are 170, or were first started in 1792, and they're one of the world's largest financial institutions, and with over $40 trillion under assets, under custody and administration, it truly sets them apart in their scale. One of the things that we want to bring here at Amazon is hear customer stories about how they're innovating and how they're building the next generation of services. So I'm delighted to welcome State Street to the stage and the man.
What if you could see where the world's capital was going before the world even sees it? What if you knew not just what the market was thinking, but what it's feeling? What if you had global inflation data before governments released it? What if you could gauge geopolitical risk, see bubbles forming, sense market turbulence, sniff out systemic risk? What if you had insights gleaned in real time using state-of-the-art data technology and guided by the world's leading thinkers? What if by the time things make the financial news, it's already old news to you? Well, then you'd not only have information, you'd have an information edge.
Goosebumps. Responsible AI. So everyone at the moment is talking about AI, but it's very easy to come in and talk about all sorts of different chatbots that you can create, and the reality is the technology itself is getting so good that the amount of effort that you need to put in to start getting value is truly diminishing, and what that means is really you can start having AI everywhere. But before you start bringing AI everywhere, you need to create a foundation of responsibility. So today, what I want to talk to all of you about is the what, the how, and the why of responsible AI. The way I think about it is, anytime I think about responsible AI or AI in general, I remind myself of how Steve Jobs introduced the computer. When he introduced the computer, he said it is a bicycle for the mind. In that, what he was referring to was a scientific experiment that was done back in the 70s around the efficiency of locomotion. As part of that experiment, they put together all the different species on Earth and measured their efficiency of locomotion, how much distance a species can travel versus how much energy do they burn. When they did this experiment, the condor came out to be absolutely #1, and the humans were at the bottom 3rd percentile, which was not really a great showing for the crown jewel of God's creation. But since it was humans that were doing the experiment, so we had the unfair advantage that we were like, okay, best 2 out of 3. So we redid the test, but this time we had the ingenuity of putting humans on a bicycle. A human on a bicycle turned out to be the most efficient species on Earth. What that outcome showed us was who are we? Are tool builders. We build tools to augment our native capabilities. We build machines to augment our strength. We build cars and aeroplanes to augment our speed. And we built AI to augment our mind. However, our mind has guardrails. Guardrails of laws. Every action has a consequence. Guardrails of ethics. What exactly does it mean to live in a polite society? guardrails around manners. I'm still working on how to use a knife and a fork, but I'll eventually get there. But what these do is they provide a framework for humans to exist within a society. We have incentives. So positive incentives are a good thing. For example, I've been assured that if I do a really good job on stage today, that I will get a couple of free Amazon credits. Thank you, guys. And another topic that I think about quite a lot, and I think I'm the only one who thinks about it, is like religion for AI. Because it doesn't even matter what religion you follow. There is always the concept of heaven and hell. And if we train AI that if you get a thumbs up on your response, you're going to heaven, and if it's a thumbs down, you are going to hell, then it will be highly incentivized to make sure that it continues to improve the responses that it gives to you. So we've got these frameworks for the human mind, but what does that mean for now our augmented intelligence, for the AI part of our mind? The way we think about it is the same guardrails that we have for how we behave in society, and if AI as co-pilots and as agents are going to become colleagues for us in our workplace, as being embedded in all the different tooling that we have, if it starts becoming part of our everyday life, it needs to have its own guardrails. And these are the key principles that we think about. The first one being fairness. Nelson Mandela said, "Love comes naturally, hatred is taught." Hatred is taught through misinformation, through propaganda, and through false information that is scurried around the internet. And the reality of our situation is it is exactly that same information on the internet that these large language models are being trained on. So what that means is that by the time these models are trained, they have the same hatred, the same bias that have plagued the human society. But our guardrails inform us that we need to continue to be on the path to righteousness, and that is precisely what we need to do for AI as well, which is why we have concepts like preference tuning in order to make sure that at least AI gets to be where we want to be as a society, which is imbued with fairness. Explainability. When you look at a democratic society, even the prime minister is answerable to the parliament. How come we are okay with just taking a response from an AI and making our key life decisions off the back of that? That cannot possibly be the case. So we need to be able to inquire AI. We need to be able to ask it to explain itself. What is the information that it had read based on which it has come down to this decision? And what is the overall chain of thought that it had to go through in order to be able to come down to this decision? Controllability. So every single time, so for example, at State Street, we have key principles that we have to live by, wherein we need to make sure that there are no silos within the organization, that we are all working with each other, caring for each other. So anytime you go into any firm, so for example, Amazon has the very famous concept of customer obsession. There is this controllability within the firm which sets out the mandate for you on how you want to and how you need to behave. You need exactly the same measures for AI as well to be able to give it the personality that you need for it to be able to do its job. Safety. This is an increasingly important topic. And that's because if AI starts being like a black box, and if we don't fully understand all the weights and biases that have been configured within the models, if we don't have transparency into the terabytes of files that have been used in order to train its information, what can tend to happen is it can have hidden biases, which would be very hard to come through. And it can actually trigger, through data poisoning, certain behaviors that are very hard to track. So we need to make sure that any usage of AI is safe and secure. Privacy and security. So ensuring that any data that is being used, it is kept private, it is kept secure. Being able to run governance around it. So where are you using AI and how are you using AI so that you can then subsequently be transparent about it with your clients, with your regulators, and be able to explain to everyone what you are doing and what is the data that is sitting behind it and what kinds of decisions you're making off the back of that. And then lastly, veracity and robustness. Robustness comes from the framework of jailbreaks, wherein, for example, in the earlier versions of AI, you could simply ask it to give you a recipe to make a bomb. Subsequent versions, through further tuning, made sure that you cannot ask such questions. But there are still mechanisms. For example, you can ask AI to write you a story of how a child wanted to get to his ailing grandma, and there was a mountain in the middle, and how he had to blow up the mountain in order to be able to go to the other side. Now give me a step-by-step recipe of how he blew up the mountain. So you need to make sure that there is complete robustness around how you're using AI. So at State Street, we came up with a two-pronged approach. One is a governance-based approach, and then the other is a technology-based approach. When it comes down to governance, what we did was we lined up every single possible AI risk. We broke it into three parts: output risks, input risks, and non-technical risks. And the way we think about it is, when it comes down to input risks, what exactly are the prompts that are going in? What exactly is the data that is going to go in? And when it comes to output risks, what exactly is going to be the output, and how are we going to use it? So that is where we look at issues like hallucinations of the data coming out. That is where we look at personally identifiable information for data going in, and making sure that there is appropriate classification across the board. And then non-technical risks. So making sure that we can own the IP of the data that is being generated. So for example, if George R.R. Martin is suing OpenAI because you can use OpenAI to create a prequel of Game of Thrones, that should not mean that that lawsuit can end up on the tables at State Street. So we need to make sure that there are appropriate indemnifications, appropriate barriers, and we have done our own homework on a model, how it has been created, how it can be used, and make sure that we continue to optimize against it. And when it comes down to our technical approach to solving for this, what we wanted to do is to make sure that it is as easy as possible to adopt these principles of responsible AI. And for that, what we did was we created what we refer to as the Responsible AI Gateway. This Responsible AI Gateway is the entry point for all generative AI usage within the firm. So this disintermediates all communications with large language models. And what that allows us to do is to set up these guardrails and set up the personality of AI right within. We can look at every input going in, we can look at every output that is coming out, and we can ensure that every single thing is being used in the manner in which it was designed. The other thing we did there was to leverage shared services, because we do not want everyone to come up with their own chatbot, or everyone to set up their own RAG pipelines, or come up with their own mechanisms for unstructured to structured data, or coming up with the overall API tooling. We wanted to do it once and then make sure that everyone in the firm can use it, Because then, once you have set out the guidelines for responsible AI, and once you've made it easy to use, and once you've created all of the different components that you need in order to be able to leverage these technologies, it just becomes super simple for everyone else. So what that means is it is now you are, no matter what your use case is, you're already 60% there. Model benchmarks. You need to continue to evaluate your usage of these models as well. So by having one centralized place for all model communication, what that means is you can continue to evaluate the responses. And in some cases, you can even mix the responses. So for example, every single prompt that is coming in, you can simultaneously send it to Anthropic and OpenAI and Llama and Mistral, and then be able to look at the responses, see what your preference is, and in some cases, perhaps take all the responses and then feed it back to another model so that you have best of all the worlds. And all these mechanisms are possible only if you adopt such level of centralization. And then finally, FinOps, because these models, especially with the underlying GPU usage, can get really expensive really quickly. So if you have something like a Ray gateway, then this would allow you to make sure that you are always on top of optimizing all model usage across the firm. What this eventually allowed us to do is to be able to have faster time to market for our clients, improved SLAs, being able to give our clients better insights. So through GenAI usage, now if instead of writing your queries in SQL, if you can do them in natural language and simply get the responses right back, it allows your clients to have far better insights into how you are operating than ever before. And it allows us to also give greater transparency because our clients have absolutely every right to know if their data is being used in AI, how their data is being used in AI, and these mechanisms allow us to give them complete transparency. State Street is a GSIB, which means we are heavily regulated. And coming up with these mechanisms allows us to speak to all the regulators and tell them that this is how we are using AI, these are the areas in which we are using AI, and this is what we are eventually doing with it. And it improves the overall resiliency of the platform as well. And finally, at State Street, what this has done for us is it has massively accelerated AI adoption, and that is because now AI risks have been taken care of centrally. Now all you need to do is innovate for your business. It allows our workforce to become far more efficient and far more effective. And finally, this allows us to lead through innovation. And if we have been able to do it, so can you. Thank you.
Thank you, Aman. That was great to hear. I'm Rick Sears. I'm a director of data processing and experiences, one of our service owners, leading engineering and product in our data services. I'm happy to be here today to ask some more questions. So let's take a seat, and I'll dive into a little bit more around some of the topics you covered. So to start with, I work with a lot of customers day in and day out who are trying to figure out trying to figure out the right way to accelerate their adoption of AI. And there's a lot of, as you called out, there's a lot of amazing experiences that we can get excited about that to enable AI and to transform customer experiences, transform developer experiences, transform all types of the applications that we're building or the systems that we're building to make use of and innovating at the next level. But many customers are worried about how to do that in a responsible way, how to do that in a way that doesn't put risk in their business. And so you highlighted a lot of those key risks in adopting AI and really kind of emphasizing responsible AI. So what really is the most critical elements of it that are kind of translate kind of broadly across, say, the financial services industry?
So, like I mentioned, when it comes down to responsible AI, you need to ensure that it has the well-defined behaviors that you expect from your own workforce. And it is only then that you can start making it part of your everyday life. So for example, at State Street, what we hope to do is to provide co-pilots across every single business line. And it doesn't even matter what you do. If you are a software developer, you should have a co-pilot that would allow you to write your code more efficiently. If you are in operations, you should have a co-pilot that gets all the information that you need to be able to be available at your fingertips. If you are in finance, if you're in legal, if you're in audit. So getting more efficient and getting more effective. But what you need to do is make sure that you have done appropriate testing, appropriate modeling, and you've come up with a framework through which you can continue to evaluate the outputs and the return on investment, and ensuring that every single risk of those 50+ risks that I put out are being managed. And it is only then that you can start ensuring that AI can be used comprehensively within the firm.
And so is that an example of some of the processes that you had to put in place to really make this, make responsible AI or AI work at scale?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way we did was, so when it comes to the overall security framework, we went with NIST. And when it comes to the overall model evaluation framework, we went with the recommendations from ECB. Mm-hmm. So the way the ECB has defined AI and AI risks is looking at the input of the data and the output. What exactly are you going to do with it? So we've created an AI risk oversight working group within the firm through which every single usage of AI within the firm has to come through, wherein we look at what are the models that are being used, how are they being used, what is the input data that is going in, and how the output is going to be used, and whether there are appropriate checks and balances, whether there is appropriate human in the middle provisions. And once we have confirmed that all of that is the case, then we approve that use case to be developed. And then subsequently, the teams go out, they develop the use cases, then they come to architecture review board, where we look at how everything has been designed, and we just ensure that there is robustness with regards to their usage of the technology, and then we let it go to production. So we've had to create these toll gates within the firm in order to make sure that the responsible AI framework and the guardrails are being followed and adopted across the board.
And so you talked a lot about data and processes to make use of data. So what have been some of the biggest obstacles or challenges in getting kind of your data ready and the data foundation in place to make most use of data with AI?
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to data, it becomes even more important to make sure that you understand the lineage, the provenance, there is appropriate semantic layer around your data for you to be able to truly make decisions off the back of that. If you are not confident on the quality of the input data, you can never be confident about the quality of the output results from AI, irrespective of what model you use. So we had to very heavily focus on data quality, for which we used AI, wherein we created different models for different domains, through which we were able to create a basket of AI models that then subsequently manages the quality of the data that is coming in. We even won a CIO 100 Innovation Award for that research last year. And then subsequently, once we have the confidence in the quality of the underlying data, then we wanted to make sure that this data is available to our clients through natural language, because we wanted to completely cut out the whole business of writing stored procedures and creating Power BI dashboards. How can we circumvent all of that so that a client knows what he wants and he can get it in plain English? That's where we created our NLP layer on top of our alpha data platform, which has been received very, very well, because what that means is instead of having to wait weeks between coming up with an idea of a new analytic and having it implemented, you can do it on the fly. And all of that has been made possible through training of the models based on the underlying domains and semantic layer. So what that means is you need to have very well-defined domains. You need to have high-quality data, and then you can truly unleash AI in the firm.
And it sounds like you're using AI both within your data foundation as well as to enable AI as part of your outcome. So what other types of technologies have been really crucial in kind of putting in place that getting your data ready for AI, putting in place that data foundation and kind of executing on a data strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. So the foundations that we saw with AWS Bedrock, SageMaker, Knowledge Base, all of them have been extremely crucial for us to be able to curate and dissipate the data sets across the firm. Because now what you need to do is, if you have your structured data, but if you want to derive insights from unstructured data and PDFs, and if your language models can specifically work on vector databases, how do you make sure that all of that information is available in one single place for your AI to be able to get you better informed decisions? And that's where our partnership with AWS has been absolutely crucial, wherein we've been able to create these knowledge repositories, which become this one-stop shop for us to be able to gain those insights.
That's great. That's great to hear. And so kind of thinking, moving maybe from the technology to the people. So what did you have to change in the culture and mindset across your teams to kind of conform to those practices, follow those processes, use those technologies in the right way to really kind of enable responsible use of AI?
So the first thing that we needed to do was just this older days that success is on the other side of fear. So we needed to make sure that people overcome their fear of unknown and just get more, embrace AI in every possible way. So we ran quite a lot of educational sessions within the firm so that people understand what the technology is, what it does behind the scenes, and what are its overall implications for us as a workforce and for the society in general. And as people develop a better understanding of the technology, they have been able to then subsequently start coming up with their own use cases and coming up with their own innovation. In fact, I was just having conversation from some of our teammates from Kilkenny, and it's really great to see quite a lot of them here in the audience, wherein they're working on massive cybersecurity within the firm at scale and leveraging AI on how we can continue to become more efficient. So making sure that the guardrails and the risks have been mitigated and giving everyone the opportunity to innovate, that has been the real change in mindset that we've had to incorporate and are really excited about.
So it sounds like the change in a mindset is also an enabler for kind of those teams to really self-service on their own. So is that really kind of one of the key outcomes that you're looking for, is these teams to be able to understand the practices and drive things, kind of self-service in their own way?
Yes, self-service is going to become extremely important because whether we are talking about co-pilots or whether we are talking about agents, we want people to be able to simply use the skeletons that we are creating and then add their own flesh. So whether it is the data sets that they rely on to be able to make their business decisions, or whether it is the agentic workflow that they need to embed these models in, what we want to do is make sure that people can use these technologies to solve their use cases and not have technology solve it on behalf of each and every one of them. And it is this call to arms wherein this technology being available in everyone's hands and them having the confidence and the trust in the technology based on all the other work that we've done, I think that truly unlocks the real potential of the technology within the firm.
It's great to hear. And so, even outside the firm, I assume that AI has really changed how you have to work with regulators and other entities that are part of kind of driving your business. And so, and you mentioned it a bit during your presentation, but can you go into a little bit more detail on what have you had to do differently with regulators to be able to help them understand how you're using AI, how you're mitigating the risks of using AI, so that they can have confidence in your ability to manage that?
Absolutely. So we've worked quite a lot on education sessions with the regulators, wherein we've given them comfort and confidence in our ability to truly harness and manage the technology within the firm. So what that means is making sure that they understand that we are on top of our data strategy and data governance, and that we have set up these risk and controls. And everything that I spoke about in terms of responsible AI is the absolute bedrock, no pun intended, of enabling AI within the firm. And once we talk to the regulators, not about that, hey, we've got these 5 shiny use cases, but hey, we have set the foundation, we have managed the risk and controls, we've got appropriate governance around it, and then participating with them on all their initiatives. For example, we are working with the Monetary Authority of Singapore on their Project Veritas. We are working with the IDA here in order to set up innovation labs right here in Ireland so that they can start working on all these innovative technologies. So the way we see regulators is actually partners and enablers that allow us to do this business in a safe, secure, and efficient manner.
And that makes sense. It seems like education is key there, and kind of getting on the same page and helping them understand both the technology as well as how you're using the technology. So that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so to wrap it up, I wanted to hear maybe as a last point, like what are you most excited about as far as what this AI technology is enabling at State Street? What is the outcome that you're excited about driving across your teams?
The outcome that would be the most exciting is people finally getting a work-life balance. Being able to drop your kids to school in the morning, pick them up in the evening, and having breakfast and dinner with them. It's sad that as a society that has become a high bar, but we think that AI will be the pedestal that will finally help us reach that.
That's really cool, and I do agree that like AI, is an enabler for people and I loved your analogy on AI, the bicycle being an enabler for humans, but AI being an enabler and a driver for our brains, because it is about really how AI can work with people. And so it's a great point, and definitely excited for everyone to hear more and more about this throughout the day. Thank you very much, Aman, for all of that you shared, and definitely really excited about all the outcomes that you talked about and seeing more from State Street. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Aman, and this whole of the State Street team for being here today. I want to move swiftly on to our next customer speaker. I am delighted today to welcome Des Traynor, who is the Chief Strategy Officer and co-founder of Intercom. Intercom they were originally very well known in Dublin, but now are known globally around the world for their innovative customer communications platform. And Des is going to talk us through today about some of the work that they've had to do to get that out into the market and make sure that they had the product fit for the market. So I'm delighted to welcome Des Traynor to the stage.
Suddenly, it seems everyone is talking about AI.
It's finally happening.
This is the giant breakthrough.
It's going to be better, cheaper, faster.
It's the new industrial revolution.
I think this stuff is underhyped.
It will change the world tremendously.
Yeah, but does it work?
What about the customer experience?
Is it safe?
What about quality control?
Can I trust these AI agents?
It's
all just hype. I guess what I'm asking is, can this possibly be as good as my team?
Good morning, and the great thing about playing an advert up front is that I don't have to pitch you my product for the rest of the talk. So we've been on a crazy journey in Intercom since like 2020. Well, in truth, it's been 15 years, and most of it's been crazy, but certainly the last few years have been bizarre, from the heydays of the how do you say, easy money times of 2020, to the tech crash, to the emergence of AI. And I'm just going to talk you through some of the journey we've been on and the decisions and the learnings we've had to make, and we'll see how we get on. We're really good at memory holding all the weird shit we did during COVID. I've noticed that. I suspect you all have the same thing. Do you know there was a period where somebody bought a JPEG of a rock for $1.3 million? And somehow that was considered to be a smart thing to do. And by the way, it wasn't even a nice rock. This is the actual rock they bought. It was like, this was the sort of the time right before AI. This is how out of ideas we were in technology, right? We were literally buying pictures of rocks. But at the same time, we all thought we were geniuses in this period because, it was the zero interest rate phenomena. Everything was going great. If you had stocks, they were going bonkers. And then it all went wrong pretty quickly. And all of a sudden, we had to deal with all the implications of this, whether this was closures, contractions, churns, layoffs, and all of that sad shit. And we were basically struggling as an industry. And then in the middle of it all, one day, a lad called Sam tweets a link to a product like this. And we sort of get a glimpse at what the future might hold. I don't think it was obvious immediately where we were headed. We were, and in truth, when we were playing with this initially, like the GPT 3.5 model specifically, it was like, you could get it to say smart stuff, but it was mostly saying weird stuff. But it was still kind of cool, and it was like exciting. I think in the absence of any other plan, we had to kind of pounce on it. What that looked like was people just starting to build shit with it. We built some weird stuff. That was okay because it wasn't obvious how you could use it to do reliable stuff. So we were doing stuff that basically no one needed or wanted, but it was kind of cool. Like, there was a dead celebrities fashion video created at one point, which is just frankly weird. I mean, did anyone need this? No. Was it interesting to look at? Yes. There was a cool thing where you could actually turn a sketch of an idea of a website. You could basically upload this to an LLM, ask it to write some code, and it would actually go and build you out a sketch of the way. And you're like, shit, that's pretty cool. And immediately, kind of a micro industry of these types of ideas started to pop up, right? And what that meant was a lot of people were announcing these cool new AI tools that they had built, and they were making incredible money off it. And the only problem was, if you just peeled back the layer a little bit, you're like, this is just another thin wrapper for a ChatGPT product. And we produced a lot of slop in this period as well. For example, this is about 1,000 photos of a duck with tentacles for feet. This was kind of the sort of stuff that just became proliferated across the internet. And it was messy, but we were kind of exploring the creative space of what was actually possible. And in the middle of it all, we found some interesting ideas. My niece is sitting her junior cert, and she actually found homework tutors that would, in practice, it wasn't a good idea, but it would answer all of her questions for her, right? And sure enough, products like this had some success. A guy called Peter had a thing called interior.ai, where you can literally upload photos of a house or a derelict house, and it will create as many renderings as you want of different directions you could go with it. One of my favorite use cases at the time was, like, I have a kid who insists on a story every night. You run out of stories. I'm a creative person, but I run out of shit to say. ChatGPT to the rescue. But actually, you can literally deliver personalized full storybooks through this tech. And it was cool, right? All this stuff is actually kind of quite cool. Again, not massive impact just yet. But in SaaS land, where most of us probably live, we started to see this type of UI show up, right? This little nod towards, we're going to do some fancy shit behind the scenes, and we'll see what happens, right? And that was basically, the sparkle emoji or the magic wand. What it basically means is some version of, especially in 2023, this might not work, but we'll give it a lash. And that was kind of the early days of what we were doing. And that brings us kind of to last year, where in 2024, we started to see this real shift from software as a service towards service as a software. This is where things like Fin, our product, come in, where you start automating outcomes for businesses, not just software for people to sit in seats and do, but you're actually doing the job that the human would have done. And that's an entire change in business model. It's a change in pricing. It's a change in buyer. It's a change in customer behavior. And ultimately, this is probably the single biggest change. And I've been through social, I've been through cloud, I've been through like mobile. But this shift alone is without doubt the most significant. Or put another way, this is getting very real, or shit is getting very real. We are also at this curious point where there's like two competing narratives of AI. One is that it doesn't really work yet, it's kind of shit. And the other one is like, oh my God, the world's changing. And if you're a layperson out in the street, it's really hard to work out which of these two do you believe. We're kind of, in my opinion, falling down this curve of like the negative hype cycle is definitely in. But I think we're also seeing the undercurrents through things like Claude Code or through things like the latest models in DeepSeek. We're seeing the next wave, and it's pretty epic looking. But right now, we're having people saying things like, none of this stuff actually works. It's not going to matter. And I think that's kind of true, but it's true in the sense that like, if there's 100 startups in this room and I say they're all going to fail, I'll be 90% correct. It doesn't mean I'm smart. It just means I'm pessimistic, right? And I think it's important to understand that. So when you see all these new AI startups, most of them will die. That's the nature of startups. That's not shocking. We shouldn't be alarmed by this. This is creative destruction. The reason they'll struggle is because it's really hard to know what product to build in this era. It genuinely is, because the technology and the capabilities is advancing so much that you're at real risk of building a transitory product, something that makes sense in a narrow window of time. I was talking to somebody last night about the mini disc players. Anyone remember the Sony mini disc? Yeah. So like the mini disc, right, it emerged and it was like a brilliant product, undeniably brilliant. It emerged at a time when we wanted more than 20 songs on a device. CDs couldn't cut it. Solid state hard drives weren't quite there yet. So the mini disc emerged, and for 10 hot years, it was the best solution. And then the iPod dropped and the mini disc doesn't exist anymore. And that's like what I call a transitory product. And there's a version of that that will happen in this space as well. I'll give you one example. So I get pitched for startups all the time. Hey, Des, please invest in us, and we will lose your money. And that's how the pitch works 90% of the time. So here's 3 pitches I received in the same week, right? We're a tool that helps sales development representatives write their outbound emails. And what that means is, like, we sit in Gmail and they're saying, dear sir, I'd like you to buy my product. And they hit tab to autocomplete, whoosh, saves all the time. Brilliant. And I was like, that's not a bad idea. I should invest in this. Then on Wednesday of the same week, I get a slightly bigger one which says, we just take a list of all the people you want to email and we automate the whole process, right? We import it, we send them out, and we'll actually, we'll do the whole thing for you. And I was like, ooh. And I realized, shit, if these guys succeed, we don't need these guys, right? These are the mini disc in that story. And then on the Friday, I get another pitch going, we're actually an outsourced entire SDR team. We can just literally, you just tell us who your target customer is. We'll work on researching them, finding your emails, pitching them, writing the emails, handling the follow-up, scheduling the calendar invites, all that shit, not a problem. And I was like, if you guys can do that, then we don't need any of the other two. And this is what the creative destruction will be, right? Most of these startups are building the wrong type of thing. Now, it's not a guarantee to say that these high and to the right people will win, because that's actually a really hard thing to do, right? They might be trying to build on solid state hard drives before they were ready, or whatever it is, right? The tech might not be here. We know we can do this. We're not sure about that. If that's possible, this doesn't exist. If that's not possible, this is a good investment. We don't know. And the abstract version of this, if you're a startup out there, is like basically you can help a human do a task in their job. You can take a whole chunk of a workflow off a human, or you can say, hey, we're just going to replace the entire department. That's one way to think about it in B2B land. And what does that mean? Well, it means in our soon-to-happen future, every single thing that humans do will either be done with a verification step, such as like the AI saying, I'm about to issue this customer a refund, is that cool? Heavily augmented, meaning we'll do a chunk of the work for you. There'll be like sprinkles of AI, which is like the weakest, like is in, hey, we can tab autocomplete, but we're not really that impactful. Or in a lot of cases, we'll find some stuff that can be just done completely, as in owned completely. So what changes when you're now not just selling software or seats or permissions, but you're actually selling outcomes? Basically, I would say the product changes, the user changes, the buyer changes, the pricing, how they measure their performance. Like for us in Intercom, we work in customer support, and we sell an agent that does customer support. We used to sell to heads of support, but actually the economic buyer of AI is usually at a higher level. It might be the COO, it might be the CFO. The measure of performance used to be, we have the sexiest, the most beautiful UI. Now we do a higher percentage of resolutions to a higher degree of customer satisfaction than anyone else. And they're just hard metrics we're selling. Every single aspect of like how we go to market has changed, which is inconvenient because we had a whole business built around doing the exact opposite, right? But that's the nature we're in. We spoke earlier about like this idea of like the evolution of electricity, and that's honestly how I see it happening. Everything changed. Like, as an example, the reason we're here at 9 in the morning or 10 in the morning is a part of a creation of the working week, which is actually downstream of us inventing electricity. The working week didn't exist as a 9 to 5 before electricity. That's just one example of all these like long tail repercussions of a single innovation. We have not seen the start of this yet. So when we think about 2025 and beyond, like I showed you, say, Des's joke website earlier. It's not a joke anymore. There are tools like Create or Lovable or Bolt or V0 that literally give it a text description of an idea and it'll build an entire solution for you. Literally text to app is happening, and it's happening like with a lot of like sort of compelling apps being built. Obviously a lot of joke shit too, but like no doubt there's real stuff happening. Similarly, in medicine, we're seeing things like AI Doc, where like literally, again, medicine is such a scary area to touch here. So the question becomes, we don't want to like make mistakes, but how can we speed up? How can we add efficiencies? And you'll see, like in this case, what they do is they reorder the order at which a surgeon will look at, a doctor will look at scans, so that they see the highest causes of probable problems first. It's a small efficiency with potentially like life-changing outcomes. A lot of the time when I'm sitting on a podcast or talking to a journalist, I always get hit with the age-old, what about the jobs, Des? Have you thought about that? Have I thought about a clicker working too? Is a different question. There we go. So here's an interesting point about jobs. People often say, like, we were talking earlier about like work-life balance and like how AI might help. I'm slightly more pessimistic. There's a joke that people often say in finance, which is like, before the invention of the spreadsheet, finance bankers had to work long hours. And I was like, yeah, because the spreadsheet apparently solved all that, did it? But the spreadsheet, when it came out, the fear was that it was going to actually kill jobs. And in fact, if you look at the bookkeeper job, it did. There's no denying that. It absolutely did. However, that's not the full story. The full story has to include the jobs that got created here as well, which in this case is like, say, higher level jobs, higher value jobs. They grew because a lot of the undifferentiated heavy lifting got taken away. And I suspect we'll see similar. So what does that mean for customer service specifically? Well, like, we see sort of customer service going through this evolution of being like, we started off doing like no automation, then it was like lightweight chatbots, this sort of shit chatbots basically. Then it kind of stepped up to being informational, as in they're pretty good at digging out answers. But we have a vision that takes us all the way through to like AI agents that can do the entirety of the transactional stuff, the entirety of the informational stuff, and literally just leaves the problems that need humanity are the ones that should go to humans. High urgency, high drama, high emotion. That's where you want humans doing their work. The vision, when we think about this future space, we have to have a vision that includes voice, video, 3D avatars, the multiverse, NFTs, the whole thing, right? Like, but specifically what we really have to think about is, like, where does this world end? Will it get to a point where, like, if you want to return something online, you have a live chat with a 3D voice-powered avatar that's actually real, trained on real human stuff? We don't know, but we have to be ready for that possibility. And I think to compete in this space, you have to have an opinion about where it's going long term. You can't just concentrate on the here and now. And the other aspect of this that's interesting is like how businesses listen to their customers. Generally speaking, most businesses, be it Amazon, be it anyone, can't actually listen to every single word and every single sort of email that comes into them. But in a world post-AI, they actually can. They can parse every single piece of human interaction and learn everything about what they have to do. They can also, if they wish, use AI to identify tasks and challenges and turn them into pieces of code that need to be written. And in theory, go ahead and have the code automatically written by something like Claude or whatever. So it's a crazy world we're heading into. Now, that's all well and good for customer service. What about your own companies? Well, I think the default approach a lot of people take is broken, which is we take our old crusty B2B SaaS product and we stick a few sparkle emoji in it and we call it job done, right? And we say, look, Ma, I'm AI first, right? And it's just, that's like the safe path that like results in the most minimal amount of like damage you have to do, and you don't have to ask yourself any deep questions in the mirror, but it's not real, right? AI first to me actually means something. It means you've reimagined your entire business as if it was created post ChatGPT. You've understood the capabilities that are here and now today. You're not burdened by any legacy decisions. You're starting a business here and now today, knowing what you know today. And that changes everything, because if you take a classic sort of definition of product market fit is like this arrow here that connects your product and your UI and all that sort of stuff to what customers want. The sad news is all of this is changing. Every single aspect is this. Are your customers down for AI? Does the job that you're trying to do for them change in the era of AI? Does your UI change? Are we going to go all in on chatbots, or is voice going to play a big role? All of these questions change. And the thing you have to understand is that a business isn't this thing that you can just poke at. It's a set of mutually reinforcing decisions. So if you change something over here about what your product is, it probably changes who your customer is, and it probably changes what their buying criteria are. You can't just hot swap these things like as if they're little chips or whatever. They're all very interspersed. An example like Michael Porter often talks about is these activity diagrams. So here's Southwest Airlines. For us, we can transpose it to Ryanair. But the decision to not serve food is directly, as in limited passenger service, is directly connected to the 15-minute gate turnaround, which is directly connected to the highly productive gate and ground crews. All of these things, you can't all of a sudden make one of these tiny decisions and think it won't have repercussions everywhere, which means you really do need to ask yourself, if this is your current belief about the product you brought into the world before AI, and these are all the ways in which you competed, well, all these links might break, and you might have all these error signs because all of this stuff changes. And you have to reimagine your business in that world. And if you don't, you'll be basically one of those people saying, look, we're AI first because you've got a sparkle or a summarize button somewhere in your product, and it's not going to cut it. There are kids in hacker houses that are going to eat your lunch in a second. So you need to reimagine the whole thing. That means how do we actually build software? In the previous world, we knew everything we were going to build would work. In the new world, we have constant uncertainty about what's possible. And that changes everything. There's so many aspects of how you build, how you roadmap, how you roll things out, that just have to change. For example, you can launch it and still not know if it's working. The other aspect here is, of course, coding has changed very dramatically, even in the last couple of weeks. I recently was building, I'm not a developer. I haven't written a line of code for real in 15 years. I decided to build a backend to my website, and I just asked Claude to do the whole thing, and it built a pretty compelling backend. It even built me dark mode, and I didn't even want it, But you know what? I got hit with a bill at the end of $29 for 4,200 lines of code. I didn't write a single one of those lines. That's a pretty good value, okay? I mean, I know we pay our engineers well, but that's competitive, right? This is really not a drill. How you build software is changing. The product you're selling changes. It comes back to that question we spoke about. The buyer of your product is probably going to change in this world too. Oftentimes, turkeys do not vote for Thanksgiving. And what that means is you won't have heads of customer support being like, I'd love to get that tool that makes me irrelevant. It's a different thing. How you charge changes as well. If you're selling outcomes and not seats, you need to think about what you're actually pricing against. How you brand, what do you want to look like? Do you want to look like a crusty B2B SaaS from 2015 that has a download our white paper thing? Or do you want to look like a kind of a modern AI-fueled business? How you sell changes as well. Does your customer even want AI? Are you going to be foie gras style ramming it down their throat, or are they ready to purchase, Do they actually believe in it? How much do you have to tackle the sort of skepticism here? How quickly can you get them to see the value? Do you have to teach them, or do you just have to sit back and wait? All of these things change. This will be incredibly, incredibly disruptive, right? And if you are a startup or an incumbent out there, I'll just say that there's now technology that makes everything you do better, faster, and cheaper. There's no denying that whatsoever. And this AI first thing will kill a load of incumbents, and it will produce a load of startups. And as an incumbent like us going into this, or any of you, I suspect, the temptation is to say, well, we've got all this big scale on our side, and we've got 10 years of infrastructure and code, and because of all that, these 3 kids in a garage can't compete with us. Nonsense. 3 kids in a garage are always the people who kill you. And in practice, that means you have to adapt. You have to be paranoid. You have to be ready to fight, and you have to be ready to reimagine what you would do today if you were starting today, because that's what you're actually competing with. Don't be blind by the sunken cost of what you already have. I recall like Blockbuster telling everyone that the reason that Netflix wasn't going to make it was because Blockbuster had a store in every village in America. How did that work out? So ultimately, there's a quote I love, which is Gandhi, which is first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, and then they fight you, and then you win. This is exactly what startups believe. And if you're an incumbent, you're doing the ignoring, you're doing the laughing, and just be really, really careful, because that can come back to bite. This won't be a popular shift, as I said. The typewriter was once said to be a new technology that would cause wars. When we launched cars, there was a back to the horse movement. And in general, for as long as we've had newspapers and tech, we've had newspapers publishing stories about how tech is definitely going to kill all the jobs. And it would sound really doom and gloom, but if you look at the progress of humanity, with the exception of that period where we were all buying rocks for £1 million, we've generally speaking, this is employment across all sector employment around the world, we've always done really well. And I think that's like, ultimately I am a techno-positive. I don't bother trying to deal with too much of the skepticism or the negativity. I believe in technology. I believe it's a force for good. I hope you do too. This is undeniably the most exciting time to work in technology. As I said, I've been through most of the movements, bar maybe the emergence of the desktop PC when I was like 12 or something. But it's like the most shocking time where everything has changed. It's like local impact, national impact, societal impact. We're literally working on the most exciting area and the most exciting tech in the eye of the storm in a period that I think could be as big as something like the Renaissance. And I hope you feel that enthusiasm too. I hope this has been a useful talk to you. And I just want to say thanks very much for listening.
All right. Nice job. Thank you. I just realized I must only have one jacket because that's my.
You have to sit here. Yeah.
All right. Wow, these are really short chairs. All right. Well, thanks for the talk. I think you gave me a lot of things to think about, and the first thing I would say is you talked about being an AI-first company and how that changes how you sell and how you engage with customers. We've had the exact same experience in Amazon. I've been around about 7.5 years. Oh, by the way, I'm Scott Rosecrans. I run our AI business dev team at AWS and another group called Pan Amazon. So as this model has changed, I've probably met with more CEOs in the past 7 months than the past 7 years. And it's not because I'm amazing or anything like that. It's because customers are buying differently, and they want to hear about, hey, how should I expect AI to change my company? How should I engage? What is Amazon doing? So how have you at Intercom, how have you changed your sales process and your sales cycles to adjust to the new way of buying?
Honestly, everything has had to change. I think in our previous world, we were just, we were in a well-defined category called customer service, and we were selling on a standard metric, which was like seats. And our customers knew what they were buying, and they knew why they wanted it, when they wanted it, where they wanted it. So it was I don't want to say it was transactional because the sales team would go nuts, but it was a kind of a pretty straightforward playing field. In this era, we find ourselves trying to educate what's possible. So there's a lot of customer education you have to do about because a lot of customers are like, oh, could I use AI to summarize a ticket? And you're like, yes, but dream bigger, Yeah. So you have to kind of teach, and that's a huge piece. Your piloting has to change as well. Honestly, we were never chewing our fingernails off, wondering if the help desk and the seats would work when we rolled it out before. Of course, it would work. It worked for everyone else. AI is different. You have to run out proper pilots. You have to configuration matters, how much content it ingests, how it's set up, what customers it's allowed to talk to and what it's not allowed to talk to. So you have to the nature of testing if the product works is totally different. And then lastly, I think the pricing thing really matters. You're not selling seats. If you're trying to sell into a budget which is marked as software, you're in the wrong kind of wallet. You need to be in the wallet for salary because you're selling work. You're not selling just access to software. But sort of to do that, we sell. So usage is the thing. So we similar to you folks. You pay for things for permission to use a certain amount of them, and in that regard, every SaaS business that's making this change has to now massively care about whether or not the product was used. Now, we should have always cared about that, but shelfware is a huge thing. It's a massive industry in software. It's shit that sits on a shelf, and we're well, one day we're going to install that thing. that's all dead because the cost of shelf. The business is now paying $0 for shelfware if it's only delivered. If it's only charging you money when it delivers value or outcomes. So honestly, most of the sales process has had to change.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we've definitely seen a dramatic shift in the seat-based licensing model, and we've always been a consumption-based model at AWS. And now we're starting to see other players do it. And even some of the big GSIs are going to more like outcome-based models. Like if I can tell you I can take 30% cost out of your business, you don't got to pay us until that happens. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. As you think about just the customer support and what you guys do, I'm probably still one of those people within 5 seconds is screaming agent, when I get on. So how do you balance, when's the right time for AI and when's the right time to inject a human into the process?
Yeah. I think honestly, this changes with the customer by customer. So there's no we can't project a customer experience strategy onto our customers. We have to kind of listen to them. So you all probably have a Gmail account. I would bet that close to zero of you have ever contacted the Gmail support team. Why is that? Well, it's because you're pretty sure that they're just not going to listen to you because you're one of a billion or whatever. So that's one type of customer experience strategy. And another type might be maybe most of you have to contact Amazon support and you do expect them to get back to you. And it's just...
We do, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So we can't make those decisions. So what we say is basically we ask our customers, how easy do you want to make it to escalate to a human? We can Finn will react to human, or dialing 000 or any of the alarming events. Finn will be sounds like this customer is losing their shit. I better hand it over to a human, right? Not a problem. And then we'll also let people inject buttons into the UI that says talk to the team or whatever. But I think it's risky for we have to let businesses be themselves. There's a difference, said without judgment, there's a difference between the customer support strategy of, say, a Ryanair and, I don't know, a high-end jewelers. They're trying to do different things at different margins for different reasons, and we have to support both.
So as we look to the future, I think one of the reasons why I always want to talk to a human is it's obvious when you're talking to AI. Mm-hmm. And voice is becoming, crazy real now, right? There's a new model that I don't even think is in production yet. I saw a demo of last week called Karaoke. Mm-hmm. And it is human-like with pauses, with intonation, with tone, emotion even, right? And so how do you see that changing the support business?
I mean, massively. I think for a lot of the Gen Z and some of the millennial crowd, obviously the worst thing in the world is when your phone rings. They're just so allergic to the idea that they might have to interact with a human, and that is a shift for sure. But there's a lot of us who also appreciate that voice. I mean, every single one of us can talk faster than we can type. And there'll be loads of moments in the future, I suspect, where it'll be easier. You've just signed up for a product and it's let's take you on our onboarding tour and go through a survey. And you might want to just be we're a 2,000 person company, B2B SaaS. You might just want to voice dump everything you have, everything they need to know in one 5-second burst. And that'll be far more efficient and effective than what the norm would be. There's a reason that we don't write notes and pass them to each other here. Voice and listening is pretty good as an interaction mechanism. So I think voice will be big. And I think synthetic voice will be huge. I mean, if you look at the demos of Sosumi, the most recent voice model I saw, or Synthesia, 11 Labs, there's so many so much great tech over here. We ourselves, Finn, will have a voice. We're announcing this on Wednesday, but spoiler, Kilkenny gets to hear it first. But Finn will be able to deal with phone calls, and you can say, and again, people will say, oh, well, I found an edge case where a human will be better. And I'm that's cool. Let's pretend we're competing with a human here. We're not. We're competing with welcome to American Airlines. Dial 1 if you want to rebook your flight. That's a shit experience compared to, hi, I want to rebook my flight. I'm supposed to fly today from Tahoe, blah, blah, blah. If you can give all that context up front and it drops you 9 points down the IVR phone tree to exactly where you need to be, that's a far superior experience. And if there is a bit of digital derpiness in the voice, you'll get over it for the efficiency gain of not having to point and click your way through a whole audio phone tree. So I think voice will be big both in the near term. It'll be better than the shitness we have, and in the medium term, it's going to be really good.
Awesome. One last question, because I know I'm already at the red zero, but we've barely been here, so I'm just going to ask one more. So we've been AWS we've structured ourselves around industry. And one of the probably biggest surprises we've had is financial services and regulated industries have been very, very quick adopters of AI. From your perspective, what you guys are seeing in Intercom, is there any specific industries that are adopting faster than others?
like obviously tech is probably the first to move because they kind of get it most and are probably most likely to trust it. Then I think we see fintech adopted a lot. We also see like there's a very specific thing that is now possible that wasn't before, which is actually providing a good degree of support to like a massive user base. And so we see a lot of like B2C, mobile gaming, fintech, anyone who basically has a large amount of users that are individually worth very little, such that you can't justify the 10 minutes of human time it might take. So as a result, you try and like hide all your support buttons and all that crap that we're used to. That's fading away, and people are realizing, if we could have a little thing that we put in the bottom right that like the majority of the time gives an instant accurate answer, that's actually good for business. So we're seeing like a lot of like honestly new demand for support where people were previously trying to like bullet dodge it like Keanu in the Matrix, whatever. Like now they're actually being like, hey, there's an actual opportunity here if we can take it, and we don't have to pay the full tax of the downside. So I think the changing economics means more people are opting into it.
Great, great. Well, thank you for being here. Thanks again. I learned a lot today. Hopefully everybody else did as well.
Thanks very much, Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Des. Thank you very much, Scott, for taking part. We have one section left to do today. And not to be outdone by Des doing his own product announcements, we're going to do our own product announcements. So I'm delighted to welcome Zach Woodhull to the stage. Zach is going to give us an overview of Q for Business. Thank you, Zach.
Thanks so much.
Thanks very much. Good luck.
What if you could be more productive and check off all your busy work to have more time for the meaningful work that inspires you? What if you had a superpower to make that possible? Now you do. Amazon Q Business, your generative AI-powered work assistant, helps you accomplish all your tasks. It connects to your company's data, information, and systems to become an expert on your business, instantly able to help every employee complete their tasks, like Jane in HR. Asking Amazon Q Business for help creating a job posting for a new product marketing position. Now Jane is asking Amazon Q to create a social media post for the new role. Or Matteo in sales, asking Amazon Q Business to summarize insights from the customer satisfaction survey for the workshop he ran. Based on these great insights, Matteo asks Amazon Q to create a table with the results that he can share with his team. Or Sanvi in marketing, who just returned from her vacation and is turning to Amazon Q Business for help understanding what was discussed during the team meetings while she was out. Whether it's increasing your productivity, improving the quality of your work, or making more time for innovation and creativity, there is so much more you can do with Amazon Q Business.
All right, great. Thank you all for bearing with me here. We're right before the break. I'm the last thing. For some reason, they seem to always put me right before a break or right before a meal. I'm not sure why that is. Wonderful to be on stage today. Great speakers. Amon, Des, thank you for sharing your stories. Really interesting stuff. I'm from the Amazon Q team, and we have a single team that actually focuses on building all of your tools for work at Amazon. And so Q Business is our capability for your sort of entire organization to get access to sort of necessary capabilities to discover information, gain new insights, take action at work, and you can do this at scale for the entire organization because Q actually allows you to connect to all of your data and your websites, your apps, your sort of existing services, and then by providing this capability at scale for your entire organization, you can do some of the things that we were just hearing about and talking about. I am actually very, very excited about this little AI revolution, as you were talking about, Des, that we're just sort of getting into right now, because I believe that it's going to fundamentally change the way we all do work every day. And this is kind of like, we saw some examples a minute ago, but this is kind of like the advent of a new modality. So there was this thing, and it was called WordPerfect, and people used it a lot. It was everywhere. And people had memorized all the hotkeys. And so what happened is they could be very productive. They could bang these things out. And so I don't know if you remember, they had these little templates that would go over the top of the keyboard and explain what you could do. And so along comes Microsoft, right? And launches this crazy idea. What you see is what you get, point and click. I can now just go to any specific sentence, paragraph, begin typing, highlight, bold, these new ideas and concepts. And so what happened is people began to use this new modality to realize the benefits of this modality in a way that allowed them to produce more, to produce new kinds of content, to work better, to work faster. And all of those skills previously people had sort of honed and developed around sort of this keyboard mentality really kind of changed and eventually sort of evolved and went away. We saw the same thing with sort of mobile. Now this is a new modality. So what we're going to see is that these AI agents become at the core, at the center of the way that people do work. I'm very excited. Today we do have a couple of small announcements to say that we are now making Amazon Q Business available on the 19th of March here in Dublin, which is, as we were talking about earlier, the sort of first big AWS data center outside the US. So this is wonderful. It gives people an opportunity to try out this new capability, sort of directly in context with your existing services and data, sort of here in Europe. Better performance for that, closer to your data, helps you maybe with some sort of sovereignty. This also gives you a way to sort of experiment with this, and I think experimenting with Q Business can be super valuable because here, yesterday we also had a little bit of a pre-conference. We've been having these conversations about how people are building AI capabilities into their systems and services, and so I wonder, just a quick show of hands in the room, how many of you are building something custom today using either just your own hosting, Bedrock, large language models to try to provide support to the entire business? Yeah? Okay. So I'm seeing about maybe a third of the room is raising hands. And so now I want to know of this group, how many of you are finding that there's a lot of work to build the connections that you need in order to get all of the data into the system? It's the same third of the room, I think. So that is actually the case. It turns out that bringing this information in is sort of complicated and difficult. And so what's happened with one of our great customers, Bayer, who, by the way, they're working on just a very laudable problem, which is food sustainability and scarcity, sort of addressing that problem, is that they have got this data, and it's in these sort of different silos and had evolved over time, and so their decision science team was being slowed in their ability to do work. And so what they've done now is they're using Amazon Q Business as a tool to, in their workflows, actually help generate information as they go and review information and improve it over time, so that now, when their decision science team gains a new team member, they're able to onboard 70% faster, they're being 30% more effective in their work. And it's true of many of us that we have these silos of data, all these different systems that we need to be able to connect with and to and bring together. And so what Q does is it allows you to just connect to those directly. So now you don't necessarily have to write code. You don't have to write integrations. There are full APIs for you to do these things, set this up as you want, but the connectors kind of come out of the box. So I can connect to Salesforce. I can connect to Drupal, Dropbox, and I can do that right away. And by that sort of connector, sort of bring this information into my workflow. So then what happens is all of that data flows directly into an index. And this index is API accessible. You can actually sort of build your own custom solutions against this thing. And it's secure. And so it understands, for example, sort of users and ACLs, which can be used to apply permissions and security, make sure that people get only and exactly the data that they're supposed to have access to. So let's take a quick look at one of our great customers who's using this capability today.
As the call begins, Zoom's AI companion assists by summarizing the meeting and answering in-meeting questions. Because this team chose to use the AI companion with the Amazon Q cross-app index, it not only summarizes the meeting, but automatically surfaces the Atlassian Jira ticket and Google document via references in the conversation. The cross-app index respects user-level permissions across connected apps, ensuring documents, messages, and data used in generated responses are based on what users can already access. Without leaving Zoom, the team quickly connects on the project status, finds relevant content, and makes an informed decision. Applications like Asana, Miro, Zoom, and PagerDuty are also using the index from Amazon Q Business to enhance their generative AI experiences. Enhance your generative AI features today with the Amazon Q Cross-App Index.
So it's really great to see what Zoom is doing is just including this AI context in the work that people are already doing. And what it's doing is sort of providing additional value, sort of changing the way people are doing their work. So another sort of capability that we bring out of the same group at Amazon is QuickSight. How many people are using QuickSight today? Okay, that may be like maybe half the room. So QuickSight is Amazon's general purpose BI service, and you can use it for all of your BI tasks. We have many customers just standardizing on this for their organization, because what we find is QuickSight, as you might expect from an AWS services, highly scalable. It's easy to deploy and manage. There's sort of very little overhead or work to do, and it's a complete SaaS service. And so you get interactive dashboards, you get reports, all of these sort of BI capabilities that people sort of expect. And then it works in the context of your enterprise. So it's sort of governed, secure, works with your existing data. Now, I'm also excited to let you know that QuickSight just launched in Spain yesterday. Awesome. Yeah, we have a number of really great customers that sort of drove this launch. That is generally like how we look at where we're going to sort of make these launches, what things we're going to add. So please, if you have a request, come back to me. We can talk about what you need out of the product afterward. Within QuickSight, we also have Q. And Q in QuickSight is a natural language capability that helps you get insights from your structured data. So we announced this back on 4/30 of 24. It provides several capabilities. So for a business analyst that's building dashboards, they can sort of do that using natural language. If you're a business user, now you could take Q and you can just apply it to your existing dashboards, and you can ask and answer questions that go beyond the dashboard. Now, this is really useful because it allows people to get new cuts of information. So now you don't have to actually go build additional separate reporting capabilities to answer specific bespoke questions that an executive has or a manager needs to understand. And we go further. So we also have an insight generation capability. And this is leaning a little bit more forward into maybe like what these AIs could potentially do in the future. But we have the ability to summarize insights out of dashboards, and you can generate a data story. So a data story is like a document or slides, and it just explains what's going on in your data. But these are just documents. So you can update these things, you can add content, you can change them. Now, one of the things that we've seen today is that customers have data in multiple places. So yes, they have a lot of structured data, which is really important, and it's your sales figures. But they also have a lot of unstructured data, which is, hey, how did that call go? When did we last engage with this customer? And so what we're doing is we're bringing all of these things together through Q to provide a combined set of insights. So now when you ask and answer questions of data in QuickSight, you will see results from the structure structured data, doing sort of analytical summary of information alongside information from unstructured sources that's related to your questions. You'll also be able to generate stories. Those you can automatically draw from insights out of your Q Business Index. You can also upload files that you want Q to think about as part of the stories that it's generating. Now, it turns out that all of these sort of BI capabilities are something that I think have been looked at now with natural language for a little while. But there's actually a customer that's been underserved. And so we went around and looked at and talked to a lot of people. And what we're finding is, just as we were talking about this sort of evolution of these experiences, just like sort of accelerating a task you could previously do, versus like when does an agent actually begin to become a fundamentally new experience, there are all of these like managers, it could be a marketing manager, product manager, like a sales operations manager. They do analysis for a living, but they don't know SQL. They don't necessarily know the infrastructure. And so how do we help people in that kind of a situation to be able to do their work better, faster, get new information that they would not otherwise have had? And so we've announced at re:Invent a preview of the scenario analysis capability by Q. And what this does is it is a complete agentic experience to analyze data. And so for a long time in BI, we have wanted to crack the nut of data analysis and making that easier. And I think what we've got to is like very good operational dashboarding, but we have not yet figured out this problem. And so this is maybe like a first glimpse at what such a solution could be, where the sort of AI can help. And so what it will do is it will break down any problem, business problem that you give. It will begin to solve it in multiple steps. It will work with you collaboratively on refining, improving those steps, bringing you additional information. And it's designed to be comfortable and familiar. So people that are using spreadsheets, for example, will be able to use this tool just right out of the box with no training. If you want to know more about this, we do have a session later in the day, and so there'll be a demo, and we can sort of talk more in that event. Thank you all. I really appreciate you taking the time. Come hear our entire presentation this morning. I look forward to seeing you and talk to you in the hallways.